Welcome back to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also, you can find us on the radio in Las Vegas on Sundays on KDON 101.5 FM and also on 98.5 HD2 The Bet in Las Vegas. We are here and we're talking Raider football. Big shout out to our sponsor, our good friends over at BetUS. Make sure you check them out. We love them. And I had another good week with them. I had that Gardner Minshew over, Mo. We'll talk about that in a bit. But nonetheless, it is Scott Branson back with you along with my partner here, and that is Mr. Mo Moten. Mo's the senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report, also Raiders columnist at sportsnaut.com. You can also catch him on True TV, TBS, a bunch of other networks, CNN. I mean, he's all over the place. He'll usually tell you where he's going to be, but he is here. You can follow him on x.com at Mo Moten, MoEMoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is SMB today. Okay, Mo, first time we talked to you, I know Murph and I did the show after the game, and of course, everybody was excited. At least most people were. We'll get into that in a second. But this was a game you and I picked to go the other way, of course, and I think most people had it that way just because it was a tough road to hoe going all the way to Baltimore after what happened in Los Angeles against the Chargers in week 1. And the Raiders for 3 quarters, frankly, on offense were not good. I used the word putrid in the piece I wrote up on Sportsnaut after the game. And but then something happened in that fourth quarter. What happened was the defense played all 4 quarters, number one. And number two, something happened. The offense, it got a spark with Gardner Minshew and Davante Adams. Now, Mo, imagine the Raiders took them 4 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, they said, hey, we might as well go to our best players. Brock Bowers. Some guy named Davante Adams, right? So they do that. They come along in that fourth quarter, and we see a spark on offense. Now, we're going to get into the second segment. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the offensive issues here. And then, of course, in the third segment, we're going to have your calls on the Raider Nation Mailbag. But when you look at this game, and I was shocked because by halftime came, and I'm like, boy, this can't end fast enough for this team. Although it was great watching the defense, but I just didn't see anything happening. People were calling for O'Connell to come in, bench Gardner Minshew, blah, blah. But they put it together at the end. And Minshew's numbers, again, very efficient. And we'll have to talk about why that is and why so many people think he was doing awful, but yet not really doing awful. Just a weird kind of game, but obviously something Raider Nation loved because of the way it ended.
First of all, be excited for the win because the Raiders were the biggest underdogs of the past weekend for week 2, 9.5, 10-point underdogs. They're down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, by the way. They have 43 total yards going into halftime, 4 rushing yards. They couldn't get anything going. And all of a sudden, as you said, lo and behold, you go to your best players and you see what happens. You go to Davante Adams and Brock Bowers, and it carries you to a victory. So basically, a spark goes off in the late third, going into the fourth quarter, when Minshew starts to connect with those guys. Minshew, I tweeted in the middle of the game, I said, Minshew has struggled today. I didn't say he had a bad game because I still feel like he's been a lot more efficient than we saw in the preseason. I believe he leads the league in completion percentage, or his top 2, about 77%. So while he's completing passes, they're not in the first week, there weren't a lot of long, deep balls, but there were more shots taken downfield this week. And I think Antonio Pierce spoke about that. We saw that again late in the second half, and it worked out for the Raiders in their favor. Mm-hmm. Now, I also said for the people that were calling for Aiden O'Connell to start, excuse me, keep in mind that Aiden O'Connell is less mobile than Gardner Minshew.
What are you talking about?
I'm not saying Gardner Minshew is Josh Allen out there.
No.
But he is more mobile, clearly, than Aiden O'Connell. And Gardner Minshew took 5 sacks on Sunday. So you can imagine how many sacks Aiden O'Connell would probably take behind that offensive line. I said, regardless of how you feel about Gardner Minshew's play on Sunday, you cannot put Aiden O'Connell behind that offensive line and expect better results because he's a less mobile quarterback behind an offensive line that's playing poorly. The coach, Antonio Pierce, has said it. The stats say it. You could see it with your eyes. Thayer Munford and Colton Miller allowed all those 5 sacks. Colton Miller allowed 3. Thayer Munford allowed 2. So when you have pressure coming off the edge with a quarterback who's limited mobily, you're going to have a lot of issues, more issues than you would have had with Gardner Minshew. So good job for Gardner Minshew using the mobility that he has, getting the ball downfield to his playmakers, and good job for the Raiders pulling out the win in comeback fashion.
Yeah, and the thing for me is this. Now, again, I railed on Minshew for the turnover because you can't have turnovers at quarterback. That's when we saw the conversation with Max Crosby on the sideline, which was great. It was a very positive thing, and I know it's gotten a lot of play nationally as we got past Sunday. But you look at that. Outside of that, though, I don't know what some of you are watching. Like, I'm not saying Gardner Minshew some MVP candidate, but it wasn't like outside of that turnover, it wasn't like he was doing things where you're like, this guy cannot even throw the ball. He can't do this. He can't do that. Now, there was some miscommunication and certain routes with receivers, which I understand because, again, new system, new quarterback, new players. It happens early in the season. If you watch any of the other NFL games, I don't know if any of the Raider fans who watch us watch a lot of other games too, like you and I do, Mo, but you see it all over the place. I mean, the first 2 weeks have been disastrous for most teams. Like, you just see a lot of things out of sync. And this goes back to the whole preseason and not playing much time, even though the Raiders quarterbacks actually had more playing time. So you chalk that up. And I wasn't looking at Gardner Minshew and saying, well, the reason they're not moving the ball on offense is because of Gardner Minshew. If it was, then I would have said, yeah, you know what? It might be good to switch it up. I even mentioned, I wonder if he's going to have a shorter leash and if they're going to switch it just to switch up the pace. But more and more we saw, as you said, the offensive line was not doing well. And I'm worried about Colton Miller. I didn't give him a pass last week, Mo, but I said, hey, he always has trouble against the Chargers. He's going up against Bosa, going up against Mac, right? We know the history there. So I was like, okay, maybe that was it. Then he came out on Sunday against the Ravens and he had trouble again, as did Mumford. So I look at that. I'm concerned. Is Miller having trouble coming back from that injury? Is he not in shape yet? Is he not all the way back? Could be. I'm also not as concerned. I mean, concerned, yes, but not really. It's not a dire concern. And tell me if I'm wrong on this, Mo. I seem to recall last year, too, offensive line struggled early. Again, there was different players there, too, but it struggled early. Jackson Powers-Johnson's not there yet. And it just seems to me a little bit of the offensive line issues. It's hurting the Raiders on offense. There's no question. But I just wonder if it's one of those things where, and you hope it is, that they'll come together here in a couple weeks after they get into the rhythm of the season.
So a couple of quick things I'll say about the offensive line. One, Colton Miller, I believe, talked about, I think he said, no matter how experienced you are as a veteran, when you miss all the offseason, and you're thrown out there week one to play right away against Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, you're going to struggle. The Ravens defense, while it's not what it used to be under Mike McDonald, Adafi Owe, David Ajabo, those guys are pretty good young pass rushers. So I'm saying give Colton Miller some time. I know there's patience is an ugly word on this show for Raider fans, but Colton Miller missed basically all of the offseason. I say you're going to have to give him at least a month because you're not going to shuffle. You don't want to shuffle your offensive line too much because you want the continuity within that group. That's the one group where you want some continuity with guys used to playing with each other, the familiarity. And if you keep shuffling guys around, you're never going to get that continuity there. So give Colton Miller some time. He's coming off of surgery and missed all of the offseason. What I will say about Jackson Powers-Johnson, because I see this a lot, I want people to be careful. I want Raider fans to be careful about saying, all we need is Jackson Powers-Johnson to step in, and all of a sudden he's gonna fix everything wrong with the offensive line. A rookie who missed all of the offseason is moving from center to guard is not going to cure all the ills of the Raiders' offensive line. I talked about Colton Miller just now. I also pointed out Dan Mumford Jr. allowed 2 sacks last game. Inserting a rookie second rounder who missed most of the offseason is not going to fix everything. It may make it better eventually at left guard. You would hope he's an upgrade over Cody Whitehair and Andrew Speed, but it's not going to be the one piece that fixes everything. I just want to make that clear because I don't want these expectations on a rookie who's missed a lot of time in the offseason to be so steep that he can't fulfill those expectations. Because every time you hear about problems with the Raiders' offensive line, it's like, oh, wait till Jackson Powers-Johnson gets back. This is not an all-pro player, future Hall of Famer. We're inserting here. It's a rookie who's going to go through his growing pains as well. As I said, he played center at Oregon. He's moving to guard now. So who's to say that transition for him is going to be smooth sailing? So also when Jackson Powers-Johnson gets back, give him time to find his groove as well.
Yeah, and I think that if you start to look at, Mo, this goes back to one of the points you made at the beginning of the show about Minshew and his better mobility at quarterback than Aiden O'Connell is I think that perhaps Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, and the coaching staff saw this in the preseason, saw this that, hey, you know what? This offensive line is going to be patchwork. It's going to be a work in progress. We got some young guys, that we're excited about. We got some veterans who are, okay. But you saw Whitehair get pulled in the first half against the Ravens because he wasn't performing well. And Pete put in there, and then they switched back in the second half. So I think you're going to see this all year, Mo. And I think that's why, Gardner Minshew was the selection. If they were even and nobody really separated themselves, what separates the two quarterbacks the most? And that is at least Minshew can move around a little bit more. And he had to on Sunday, right? You said he got sacked 5 times. He might have been sacked 8 times if he was less mobile. So to me, I think that's playing into this as well. And I think for Raider fans, just being real here, I think this is going to be something you're going to see in waves all season long. You're going to see the offensive line have a good game, and you're going to see the offensive line, due to whatever reason, have a tough game, especially when you're going against really good competition. So, and they did against Baltimore, right? And so I think that's something that Raider Nation is going to have to get used to. The run game clearly was an issue. We'll get into that more in the second segment as we dive deep into the offense. But Mo, before we hit the break, anything else on that offensive line? You agree with me there that it's going to be probably like this all season long, just back and forth?
I don't think I don't want to say it's going to be like this all season long. We're 2 weeks into the season, and you would assume that Jackson Powers Johnson is eventually going to get in there and start. As I said, with the offensive line, you want to give that group time to gel. So I just want to say, just again, I know being patient for Raider fans is tough, but you're going to have to be patient with this offensive line. It's a new group. You're inserting a rookie. You're moving Parham over from left guard to right guard. So give it some time. Colt Miller coming off surgery as well.
Yeah, and if they have trouble against Carolina this coming week, then I'll be a little disappointed because, obviously Carolina's not very good.
That's Scott. Carolina star Andy Dalton, who's 3-0 against the Raiders. I will say this: Carolina's going to be a lot tougher. They're going to be a lot tougher with Andy Dalton back there than Bryce Young, who was benched.
I agree. All right. We're going to take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of Silver and Black today. When we come back, we're going to dive a little more into that offense and get some perspective from Mo, and I'll give you some of mine too on some of the issues like Zamir White and the running game, that offensive line, the quarterback position, Brock Bowers, who is everything and more to what we thought he was going to be. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Take care. We'll be back in just a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. All right, in this break, let's tell you about our good friends at BetUS, where Mo and I are betting our football. Mo, am I winning more than you? How are you doing this year so far?
So I hit on the Devontae Adams over receiving yards.
Yes.
1.5.
Yes.
Just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
I haven't talked about a lot of bets that I have hit. I did not. What did I play? Did we have a bet this week?
No, we didn't do the game bet, but you and I went heavy on props this week. I had the Minshew over 205 yards.
And I had the Devontae.
And you had the Devontae. And I was regretting that bet in the first half when Gardner Minshew wasn't doing anything. But I'll tell you what, obviously he came on and did well. But we will do that this week. So we're going to do that on the Thursday show. So make sure you join us on that. But Mo, I wanted to look on BetUS and take a look at the early line, and you can see it here. The Raiders have a 5.5 point. They're a 5.5 point favorite, I should say, with an over under at 40.5, which I expected that under to be there, especially because the Raiders, yes, they had the nice comeback, but still they've not put together an offense. So I'm sure the odds makers over at BetUS are looking at it and saying, wait a minute. So, hey, what's going on there? But anyway, I wanted to see this and take a look at this. The line has not moved thus far with Andy Dalton. You mentioned it in the first segment there. Andy Dalton now starting for the Panthers as they've benched former first-round draft pick Bryce Young. But this one is interesting. I think that's a light line for the home team, especially with as bad as Carolina. But I think that shows with Dalton in there and Mo again, just the inability of the Raiders to at least yet, kind of put at least the odds makers at ease with where they're going with their offense.
So on my Bleacher Report Live on Sunday after the game, I said the Raiders should be a touchdown favorite over the Panthers. So I was I was on point with that. Now I didn't know Bryce Young was going to be benched, but I would assume that the movement from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton may be like a half point, simply because Andy Dalton's experienced. But let's be honest about Andy Dalton, he's not pushing the ball downfield and scoring a bunch of points.
No.
In his first start. So, kind of feel good about that line still, but I just feel like, and I think a lot of Raider fans share this feeling with me on this one. You feel like this Panthers Raiders game is going to be a little closer than it should be. And I hope that's not the case. I hope the Raiders are able to take care of the Panthers and blow them out of the water. But now you're bringing in an experienced quarterback with a pretty good offensive coordinator and a team that's trying to avoid 0-3 and basically, I don't want to say lose their season, but go down the toilet. The Panthers are going to be feisty, and I think that it's a potential for a Panthers backdoor cover here.
Whoa, look at that! Now
I have the Raiders winning. But
I get that, and we do our game predictions on Thursday, of course. But yes, so I mean, I'm looking here, and again, it's early in the week, so not all of the lines, especially the game. I moved into the game props section. By the way, if you haven't gone to the game props on BetUS, amazing stuff. You can find stuff here usually right now. Again, it's just the basic stuff: who scores first, that type, total TDs in the game, that sort of thing. But I will tell you that as the week goes along, you got to go in there. We will make bets live on the show on Thursday, so you can see we're doing that. But I wanted to tell you guys all about our good friends at BetUS. Of course, they bring you our post-game show with me and Murph, also a big sponsor here of Silver and Black today. So make sure you go and check out BetUS. And man, I'll tell you what, just good stuff. Best payouts in the business. Quick, can even give you a private account manager. That's right. So if you really want to do it, Mo's got all these private valets and all these people who like do his laundry and all that stuff. You could be like Mo and get a private account manager at BetUS. So make sure you check out our good friends at BetUS, and we thank them for being a part of Silver and Black today. Welcome back to Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Only on the Odyssey, of course, but you can find us anywhere you subscribe to audio. So make sure you do that. Subscribe to the show. Please rate and review if you will as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X, Telegram, wherever you're watching us, make sure you follow us there, subscribe, hit the notifications bell on YouTube if you're there, take part in the chat. The YouTube chat's always off the hook. So if you're there, you can find other people in Raider Nation who will talk about the show and about the Raiders with you. So do that. Mo Moten, Scott Branson back with you. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I'm choked up because I'm about to talk about the Raiders offense. Mo, let's get into this because we talked a little bit back and forth about the game on Sunday in Baltimore. But when you look at what's going on with this Raiders offense, obviously a huge part of that we spent a little time on, which was the offensive line. And the offensive line has to play better. We heard at the press conference on Monday, we heard Antonio Pierce say this, and we've heard others say it as well. For example, like Luke Getsy. But when you look at that offensive line, what they need to do there, we kind of, as you said, it needs to gel. We'll see what happens when they add in Jackson Powers Johnson, how fast he can develop. We don't know. But the other part of this comes back to something that you and I have been harping on, and we don't do this to be overly negative. It's just Luke Getsy. I felt like, again, and it's hard because when the offense isn't moving and you see certain things, yes, you can say, hey, the offensive line's not creating opportunity for Zamir, right, to find some holes and to run the ball or give Minshew time. But also you start to look at what the plays are. And one of the things that I noticed, and this happened with the Chargers too, and I had a lot of friends texting me in the game about this. I had Murph talk about it in the post game, which is a lot of these plays that start behind the line of scrimmage, meaning you got a quick 3-step drop and you're throwing kind of a bubble screen or a backward pass or this quick screen to the right or to the left. And it just shows that there was it seems as though Luke Getsy, towards the end of the game, he kind of opened the playbook a little bit, but earlier on, it seems as though he doesn't have a trust in his offense, or Gardner Minshew is checking at the line and changing out of plays. I don't know which one, but the inventiveness, the creativity didn't seem to be there. But we saw a lot more of that, and we saw a lot more of utilizing the personnel they have as we got into that fourth quarter.
So DJ Turner touched the ball early in the game. I think when it comes to Luke Getsy and the conservative play calling, if you want to call it that, early, I think he's trying to get Gardner Minshew into a rhythm. I don't think you want to. I understand you want the creativity to be there, but I think with Gardner Minshew and his what sometimes could be an erratic accuracy of ball placement. Now it hasn't been erratic because again, 77% completion rate now. But I think once they saw Gardner Minshew play in the preseason, they understood that we want to get this guy in a nice rhythm early in the game, and then we'll open up the playbook as the game goes on. So I think it's more of a gradual thing, and that's why what you saw on Sunday. But it was good to see DJ Turner touch the ball. I would like to see Tyreek McAllister be active and touch the football because I think his speed and elusiveness could be helpful for that offense, valuable for that offense as well. So Trey Tucker is the one player I still want to see more deep shots. And Trey Tucker,
Yeah.
now I understand they went deep to DeMonte and Brock Bowers. Trey Tucker had a lot of short passes, a lot of catch and run opportunities. I understand that concept because you want him to use his speed, but I want to see those deep shots that we saw in the preseason from Gardner Minshew to Trey Tucker as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just think too that this is again, it's a breaking in period. Again, I'm not making excuses for lack of execution and things like that because that's there too, Mo. But I do think that this is not a high-powered team that's been playing together for 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? When you see a team that goes out there, when you see a team like the Chiefs, even when they add new pieces, their core has been together for so long. They just know they can complete each other's sentences, all that. I think people kind of overlook that, to your point about him getting Minshew into a rhythm. And that takes time. And look, to go on the road, and I said this after the game the other night, Mo, to go on the road and win a game you're not supposed to is huge. And not only that, but it's for their confidence, especially with as bad as the offense looked, to finish that way, to be coming home against a team, and no team in the NFL is just a walkover, right? You still got to beat a team. They're a professional football team, but coming home, you got to feel a lot better knowing, and the defense too, feeling a lot better that they kept their team in the game and the offense came through this time when it had to. So when you come back now against Carolina, I think that offense is going to have a little more comfort level. They can start to breathe a little more. And like you said, the rhythm, the confidence, all that stuff starts to boil up. And so maybe we'll see a little bit of a looser offense and we'll see a more comfortable Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium.
You know what else plays into their confidence? Antonio Pierce going for it on 4th down.
Imagine that.
On the Ravens side of the field. So it's 4th and 2, and everyone's thinking, what is Antonio Pierce going to do? Well, he went for it on his side of the field early in the Chargers game. Then he punted it on the Chargers side of the field late in the game. Now you're faced with 4th and 2. You're down 16-6, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And Gardner Minshew throws it to Devontae Adams in end zone. Now, it was an incompletion, but I think that was good for the Raiders offense to show I do have confidence in you guys to get it done. Even though it wasn't a completed pass, the Raiders, a lot of people were thinking, oh, he gave up 3 points. He should have cut it down to a 1-possession game. I didn't tweet about it because I felt like the Raiders offense needed to boost the confidence from their coaching staff. And I think that did that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that, to me, again, you think about it as well. And it was a little bit shocking. We had some people on the show who were saying, it's a great win and all, but it doesn't change anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the kind of game where you can kind of get things to click. I'm not saying the Raiders offense is going to be a top 10 offense. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, to your point about the confidence, the coaching staff shows confidence. They have confidence in one another. You have a rookie like Brock Bowers goes out and blows away the numbers. He's leading receptions and yardage for a tight end in the NFL right now, right? So here's a guy who's everything you expected, because early on in the game, there were a bunch of people saying, see, they should have taken an offensive lineman. By the end of the game, they weren't saying that so much. But it's an interesting dynamic here. And I think that this opportunity for the Raiders, remember, they had lost 49 straight games where they trailed by 10 or more points in the fourth quarter. Mo, 49 games. They broke a 49-game streak. That's remarkable. Like, it hasn't been talked about enough. That's big.
That's 3 seasons worth.
Yes.
Of losing. So, but that's why this was so big. And I was on TNT Sports on Monday, and Coy Wire, my co-host or the anchor, asked me, like, what was the biggest upset of week 1? And I told him, I said, it has to be the Raiders. I talked about it. They were 10-point underdogs. They were down 10 points going into the fourth quarter. They didn't have much offense going into halftime. And then they pull out 20 points in the second half.
It's huge.
And they basically outscored themselves in the first game and the first half of that game against the Ravens combined. So to have that offensive outburst, as I said, for Antonio Pierce to show some confidence in his offense, even though it was a completed pass, for the win on the road, going from west to east. They were 0-2 going east last year under Antonio Pierce. Just the way it all happened. I wrote this on Bleacher Report. It was an offensive momentum swing, not just for the offense, but for the team to give them confidence going into the home opener against the Carolina Panthers.
Well, and I also say, listen, and in my piece on Sportsnet, I said, look, the defense kept them there, and then finally and that's why they were in the position they were. They were in the position they were because that defense, Lamar Jackson had less yards of total offense than he had rushing against the Chiefs the week previous. So again, they did a great job. Yes. Did Henry have some runs? Yes. Did Lamar Jackson have some nice passes and some nice? Yes. But of course they are. He's a freaking MVP. Okay. But that Raider defense and Max Crosby, just again, Christian Wilkins had some amazing plays in the middle. And so we'll talk about the defense maybe more on Thursday, but the defense has to feel a sigh of relief too, because for 2 straight games, they had to, for 7 quarters, do everything. And to have, and use the Max Crosby conversation with Minshew, I'll reference that again, saying, no, you had the interception. And he's like, no, you got to get back out there. You got to get it done. And so to me, that is a big deal too, because now the offense says, we got you, right? And that's big for the defense because they feel, okay, now we start to have confidence in our own offense so that next week when we're home, we're playing a game and we're down and we're not scoring or vice versa, or we give up a long pass or something. They feel like, okay, now our guys are going to go out and do it. Now they got it down. They showed us that they can do it. So that's a big deal all the way around for this team, I think.
I feel like their leaders and their star players stepped up in the clutch.
Good
so
point.
On
Good
the
point.
offense side of the ball was Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. On the defensive side of the ball was Max Crosby from the beginning. He was living in the Baltimore Ravens backfield from the jump, from the opening drive. And then Robert Spillane. He had an interception, turned the ball over. The Raiders turned that into points off turnover. And then he had a big pass breakup late in the game in the fourth quarter to help get the Ravens off the field. So Robert Spillane and Max Crosby being the leaders of that defense. Of course, Robert Spillane, the centerpiece of the defense in the middle, a linebacker. Max Crosby being the emotional, spiritual leader. And then again, Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. I know he's a rookie, but leading by example and getting that Raiders offense through stagnant times when Devontae Adams wasn't getting the ball.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out. I think Ja'Cory Bennett had a great game as well. Really played well, had some big plays, some big breakups. And to me, that is important. You want to see that they need him to step up, and he certainly did. So that was good news too. All right, we are going to take our second break when we come back on this edition of Silver and Black Today. Guess what? We're turning the show over to you. That's right. We're going to get to your calls. Gee, do you think we had any? I'm sure they're all depressed calls. No. We're going to get to your calls on the Raider Nation Mailbag coming up with Mo and Scott right after this.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right, for those of you joining us on video, Mo, what are you watching over there, Mo? It looks like you're looking at something. What are you looking at? Is there like a lady walking outside your window? What's going on?
If you're for those of you who tuned in to my TNT sports segment, we're recording, it's on, and I did start the show with the Raiders. So as I said, when I'm on this TNT sports show, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific, whenever the Raiders do something great, you can count on me to speak about them on national TV. The Raiders, as I said, biggest win of the weekend, in my opinion, among the underdogs. We talked about upsets. And I talked about how the Raiders were able to pull out their win over the Ravens and why it was so important for them going forward.
And don't forget, it comes out late. It's like 1 a.m. But if you go to KTV, it's Korean TV. You can hear Mo speaking Korean. They replay it in Korean. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah, good stuff. All right, we're going to get to your calls now. We got a bunch of them. And of course, it was crazy, Mo. Final seconds of the game go by, and I see the Silver and Black Today Raider Nation Mailbag voicemail start to go nuts. People bing, bing, bing. And I love it because anyone that tells you who does a show like this, radio, podcast, whatever, will tell you when the team wins, it's so much nicer to talk. I mean, it's nicer for us to talk about it, number one, but number two, you guys are in a much better mood. Okay. So we're going to jump in and we're going to start out in North Carolina with Tommy. Tommy's the first up. Here we go.
What's up, fellas? My name is Tommy, coming in from North Carolina, calling right after the Ravens game. What a massive, massive victory. Hope seemed pretty lost. I'm just going to kind of ramble a little bit. Hope you guys don't mind. I got to tip my cap to the defense for a game that was pretty much in striking distance for both teams. They showed up in the first half. They held the Ravens to literally no rushing yards. Lamar couldn't get anything done with his legs. Had something going in the pass game, but they couldn't really sustain drives. Tip my cap to them, holding them only to 9 points in the first half. Max Crosby, what a machine, leading by example. 2 sacks, couple tackles for a loss. He's the train that goes, and they kind of rallied in front of him. I gotta say, even though Baltimore kind of made adjustments, defense kind of held their own, and they showed up when they needed to. Crosby with that huge sack, and then that punt. That was a very short punt, and the Raiders finally capitalized, which is great. Thought defense played well. Defense, I think, is going to be a top 10 to 15 defense this year, which is amazing. But as for the offense, first half was abysmal. Something's got to give with this play calling. I kind of want your thoughts on it. I think they need to stray away from the run game. I know they want to be a run-heavy football team, but it just seems like it's not working. The run blocking is just as bad as it was last year, and they can't sustain anything. They can't generate nothing in the run game, and it doesn't do any justice for the pass game. Now, I will say, credit to Gardner Minshew. Really pulled it together in the second half, made some really good throws, finally got Adams involved. You'd love to see a big game out of Adams. Brock Bowers is him. Get him the ball. He makes great things happen when the ball is in his hands. He did it last week too. But yeah, that's my big question for you guys is, do you think the offensive play calling needs to change? Do they need to kind of stray away from the run game? And if they don't, what really needs to happen? Because they got nothing going in the run game. It doesn't matter who's back there. But this is a great win. This is a great victory for the Raiders. Huge going back home to face Carolina in week 3, which really should be a winning game. So this is great. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. And go Raiders.
There you go. Tommy in North Carolina, first time call there. We appreciate that. Well, let's go to the last part there because, actually the run started to work a little bit later in the game as they were getting the passing game going. Amazing how that happens. And but his point there about, and I saw a lot of people say this actually after the game, which is like, boy, we got to just forget about the run and pass, and then that'll open up the run, because usually it's like pound, pass, pound, pass, right? Which is what Antonio Pierce really wanted to do. But the way things have been going with this offensive line, you kind of have to adjust, don't you?
Yes, I talked about this on my Bleach Report Live on Sunday after the game. I agree with Tommy the caller.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, as you mentioned, you run the ball to set up the pass game. The Raiders are going to have to do it inverse. They're going to have to throw the ball, force teams to get back on their heels to open up lanes, to help open up lanes, because their offensive line isn't doing it. And Tony Pierce said it on Monday. He kind of took the blame. He took the blame away from Zamir White. He said it's not Zamir. The big boys up front have to block. Yep. And if your offensive line is not opening up lanes, no matter who's back there, you're not going to get much yardage. So they're going to have to, in my opinion, they're going to have to throw to back off some guys, some defenders, to open up the run game. That to me, that is the only way, because of the way the offensive line is playing. Scott, I will say, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see anything from the run game on Sunday. Yep. I believe the Raiders had under 30 rushing yards total. Like there may be 1 or 2 spots where they had, a decent run. It's just non-existent right now. And I know there's some talk that maybe Zamir White's not a fit for the Luke Getsy scheme, but there's no success at all on the ground for the Raiders. They're going to have to go with what works, and that's the passing game. Yeah,
they're going to have to. That's where you have your talent too. All right. Thanks, Tommy. Now we go off to Anthony, our good friend Anthony in Idaho.
Guys, what is up? It's Anthony from Idaho again. Also, by the way, Young Denzel on Twitter, just so everybody knows. So I just wanted to, obviously I'm super excited that we won that game. Was not looking good in the first half, of course. Just looked like the offense was struggling. The defense looked like it might get burned out again a little bit. But then in the second half, they seemed to turn up quite a bit on offense. And it kind of proved something to me, or at least showed me what I think may be the problem overall. I think that I know Gardner Minshew is who he is as a quarterback. That's kind of expected, right? Like, he has his limitations and stuff. But knowing that you have a quarterback and the limitations that he has, why would Luke Getsy keep running those same plays? The running game's not working. He has these receivers running long routes, knowing damn well that the O-line cannot hold up for more than 2 seconds of pass pro. But then you see that things opened up once he decided to screw the run and just go with the pass. A lot of quick throws, a lot of medium routes. Brock Bowers, I think he's an All-Pro by next year. Not gonna lie, and of course Devontae is Devontae. He needs more looks, more targets down the field. And then it opened things up down the field as well. So I think that Luke Getsy just needs to make some adjustments. Hopefully Jackson Powers-Johnson will be back, and maybe he'll add a little more to the run game. I'm not sure. But, I don't know. That was an impressive win. The defense, of course, looks great. And I just want to say also, our pass rush was really good. They contained Lamar for most of the game, which was a win for me, even though we gave up 23 points. Corey Bennett, man, I see why they didn't want to sign him in the corner, because he has looked good in camp. He looked good in camp, but he's also looked really good in the first couple of games of the season. He's doing more than enough to hold his side of the bargain. So good for him, and good win for the Raiders. I'm really happy.
There you go, Anthony. Of course, he hit on my point from earlier. Jacorian Bennett, man, just did really, really well. And back to the point about passing. Yeah, they got to go with what's going to work. And again, the 12 personnel worked really well again, Mo. And I think that, you can't run it all the time. I'm not suggesting that, but I would like to see it mixed in more. They seem to do it a little more in that second half when they had to abandon the run and figure out different ways to get the ball down the field. So I would expect that against Carolina and moving forward, we'll see much more.
So a couple of things here. Someone on the show was a big supporter of Jacorian Bennett. Not sure who that was.
Well, thank you for acknowledging me, Mo. I appreciate that.
Stop it. I was a part of the Jacorian Bennett bandwagon that said, don't throw him away after 1 year. It'll run for a year.
Yes,
but anyway, about the run game and the passing game. Now, if you cannot get the run going, and I know this is going to be like chalk, nails on the chalkboard for Raider fans to hear, but the Raiders need to take a page out of the Patriots offensive playbook concept. If the run game is not working, you replace it with the short pass.
Short pass. Yeah.
So if your offensive linemen just aren't opening up lanes for your ball carriers, quick pass to the running back. That's how you're going to get your simple yards, because it's basically a long handoff, a longer handoff than you would just handing off and running behind your blockers. So if the run game can't get going against Carolina, who doesn't have their Pro Bowl defensive tackle and Derek Brown, who's hurt right now, he's their best run stopper. So if the Raiders can't get the run game going against the Panthers, I don't know what to tell you. The Saints ran all over the Panthers. The Chargers ran all over the Panthers. If the Raiders can't average at least 4 yards per carry, I'm not saying they got to run for 150 yards, but if they can't get anything going, they're just going to have to lean on the short pass game until further notice.
Absolutely. Great call. We appreciate it, Anthony. All right, now we go to Armando, also in North Carolina. What is going on in North Carolina? Now, I know you got relatives in South Carolina, Mo, but so it can't be your relatives.
North Carolina too.
North Carolina too. Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. See, you're just a Carolina kind of guy. Okay, here we go.
Scott and Mo, this is Armando from Salt Lake City.
Oh, Salt Lake.
Long time, first time, and I just want to express a lot of gratitude. I've listened to your shows on many runs, on many hikes. It means a lot. I feel a connection to you guys, even though this is the first time calling. I'm even getting emotional now, but what a hell of a win. For me, my wife is going to be laughing because everything that I was screaming at the TV about the adjustments that needed to have been made were made in the second half. And the big thing that jumps out to me, last week you had Murph on, and he said, I know he's the voice of the fan. He gets really emotional, and he's a great person. But when he said that the offensive line was not the problem, I couldn't disagree more. And it was going the same way this game. It was going the same exact way where you had Colton Miller. I don't want to hear about shoulder surgery anymore. He got beat, and we can't establish a running game. But where things changed were in the second half, where I think Antonio Pierce looked inside of himself and looked inside of the identity of the team, the players that are actually there. I know that they want to establish their run. I know they want to build a bully, but you have to be able to adapt to the personnel that's on your offense, and they did exactly that. They need to be able to pass to set up the run. They need to be creative with their blocking schemes, knowing what the weakness of this team is going to be, and it is going to be the offensive line until they either gel with the blocking scheme, or maybe when we get Powers Johnson back, that changes things. But my question to you guys, because I'm not going to be like one of those, I'm originally from the New York City area, and so I know that whenever anybody calls any of those shows, they go on tirades and they talk about what their opinion is. I want to hear from you guys. The adjustments that we saw in the second half, is that sustainable for a 17-game season? It's going to be tough. I don't know. We could get a win. Are there any adjustments that need to be made to make this sustainable? And is this sustainable? Because if it is, I think this is a team that's going to compete for the playoffs. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much again, and we'll see if you hear from me again. Huge win. Let's go Raiders.
Armando, we hope we hear from you again. Great call. And sorry I said you're from North Carolina. Not that there's anything wrong with North Carolina, but you're from Salt Lake City, so you're from Utah. So thank you so much for calling in by way, of course, New York. You said you're originally from New York. But that whole point of, can they do what they did in the fourth quarter, particularly, Mo, the rest of the year? Look, every game is different. I think you start to look at the Raiders' schedule on the back half. Not that the Ravens were any pushover, even though they're 0-2 now. You look at some of the teams you got down the schedule when you're playing a Kansas City Chiefs, or you're playing some of these other teams that have dynamic offenses, and you got to keep up with them on the scoreboard. Can you do it? It's hard to say, buddy, right? Because like you say, every show, it's about consistency. So now, if they can go through the next two games and showing the kind of consistency we saw as they did in the fourth quarter there, I'm not saying they got to score 20 points a quarter, but if they show that, then I'll start to believe it a little more. But it's kind of hard to say, don't you think?
First of all, shout out to Armando, who's originally from New York City, my neck of the woods, fellow New Yorker here. So call in any time, you're welcome. But I'll get to the crux of the call here is, first of all, I think Armando's correct, that the Raiders have to change their philosophy. Absolutely. They're not blocking well. While I do think Colton Miller is going to get time to work his way back into his groove after shoulder surgery, they have to adjust to him not playing well at the moment, and their left guard position being a liability, whoever is there. So the left side of the offensive line is a huge problem when it comes to pass pro right now. As I said, they Mumford allowed 2 sacks as well. But what they're going to have to do is, as we've said in the previous segments, they're going to have to pass first to set up the run. Now, the counter to that is this sustainable? Not if Gardner Minshew is taking 5 sacks a game, because he took 5 sacks on Sunday. You can't have Gardner Minshew be a pinata back there and be a pass first team. He's not going to last long. But I will say this. When teams see you adjust, they're going to adjust to your adjustment. So this week against Carolina, the Panthers are going to understand that maybe the Raiders are going to try to set up the run by passing first. Maybe we need to drop back an extra defender. So then the Raiders are going to have to be able to, as I said, run the football. Because once you run the football, then you have a balanced attack. So as you adjust, your opponents adjust, and then you have to counter that adjustment. So it's going to be a chess match. But bottom line is, at some point, the Raiders are going to have some balance. You can't just drop back 40, 50 times and expect to win football games. You're going to either have to establish the run, or, as I said, establish a short passing game that's a replacement for the run game to keep defenses honest.
Armando, don't be a stranger. Make sure you call in again. All right, now we go out to Mitch. Here is Mitch. Mitch didn't tell me where he's calling from. Let's see.
Yes, my name is Mitch Yannick. I am very good friends with Tarek, your regular caller. I'm from New York. My nickname is Yan Dog, and I've been a diehard silver and black fan since 1967.
Oof.
I bleed silver and black, and I gave my prediction on the game against the Ravens. I said 23-21 Raiders.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Tarek had scored 37-10 Ravens. I had to punch the tops on that. I'm like
Tarek.
I said, me and Tarek, we've met playing a game of Name the NFL Player, and we were number 1 and 2 in the world on naming the players in the NFL. Fortunately, Tarek was number 2 and I was number 1, and he gave me this number to call you guys and leave a message. But I love my silver and black, and I've always listened to Tarek talking to you guys, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that I could get on, that you get this message, and that's basically it. I'm a first-time caller. Tarek talked me into calling. He said that you guys would probably like to listen to me, and but that's how I got on. But I almost called it right on the nose. I said 23-21, and he couldn't believe it. He called me. He goes, Mitch. He says, Yan Dog. That's my nickname. My name is Mitch. And he says, I can't believe that you called it on the shot, because he says you're pretty good at calling games. So I tried. And I tell you, I'm very, very happy. I'm actually having a few beers right now with that big victory, man. I'll tell you. Hopefully the Cincinnati Bengals can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But Scott, Mo, it's a pleasure that I called. I listen to you guys talk to my buddy all the time from New York, and he lives in Chicago. And, yep, that's about it. And like I said, I really, really happy to get through to you. And I love your show, but I never called. I said, whatever. But I called and see what happens. Hopefully I get on. And I appreciate you and Mo, and you guys do an excellent job. And let's go silver and black. All right. Bye-bye now.
Yan Dog. We got the Yan Dog call. All right, Mitch. Good. Yan Dog.
Yan Dog, aka Mitch, aka Yan Dog.
That is correct.
And Mitch, Yan Dog, by the way,
but
really quick, Scott.
Yeah.
He called in to let everyone know he's 2-0 on Tarek on Name That Player and
I love it.
predicting football games. So he made sure he put that out there first and foremost.
That is awesome. No, that is great. And Yan Dog, 56 years a Raiders fan. That's remarkable. We have a lot of those guys out there and ladies who call us or send us messages that have been Raider fans since those early days. So that's awesome, man. Great to hear from you. And it's remarkable how much that fan base, and again, from New York, just like you, Mo, right? So I don't know where he's from in New York, but still just an amazing stuff. So we appreciate you calling in, but good stuff. Awesome.
Yeah. Yan Dog sounds like Brooklyn or Bronx. I may be wrong, but it just sounds like Brooklyn or Bronx. Yan Dog, let us know next time you call what borough you're close to or calling from. But I always love when I hear New Yorkers, Raider fan New Yorkers call in to the show. So don't be a stranger, Yan Dog. Mitch.
Yes, and Mitch, since you said you were number 1 and Tarek was number 2 in this Name the NFL Player, now the next call we're going to take is Tarek, so he's in familiar territory right behind you. Here we go. Here's our good friend Tarek.
Scott, Mo, this is Tarek from Boston.
He sounds so sad.
Up? Just watch the Raiders. What a gut-wrenching win over the Ravens. My gosh, it just goes to show you. When the offense can step up and do their part and it complements the defense, then you can see what the Raiders are capable of. We have the horses on offense. Getsy, when you stop dinking and dunking and throwing behind the line of scrimmage and start taking shots downfield with the tremendous playmakers that we have, Devontae, Bowers, Jacoby, the running game cranked it up when it needed to be. The defense was lights out the whole game. My gosh, talk about a tale of two halves. I was prepared to have a completely different phone call and was going to say, shame on you for bringing in Getsy. I'm still not a Getsy fan. I can't explain the slow start, but the in-game adjustments and opening up the playbook, you see the great things that can happen. What a great feeling We got our next 2 at home. We're looking at hopefully 3-1. Tremendous. This is the kind of win that we need to get the confidence knowing that we can compete with anyone in the league. Looking forward to your guys' show this week. Woo-hoo! Go Raiders. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Oh, one word, giddy.
That's the happiest I've ever heard Tarek.
Ever.
Ever.
I'm not even going to comment on anything he said because I just want him to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I said. I know, some people want to say it's one game, but just like there were people overreacting to the first loss, right? Throwing the season away. I'm okay with the overreaction the other way. I mean, be a fan.
Of course.
That's what the excitement is part of being a fan, the fan experience and going through the season.
Yep.
Of course you want to have a long-term view, but I don't want to say living and dying, but your emotions are tied to each and every game, each and every week. And I think that Raiders fans, this is a game that they should absolutely be super happy and down in beers or celebrating, because let's be honest, like, we didn't have the Raiders beating the Ravens. Mitch Yandog did, of course.
Yes.
But we didn't have the Raiders winning the game. Of course. And a lot of the experts, I didn't see one expert pick the Raiders to win. Again, they were the biggest underdog going into week 2 games. 9.5, 10-point underdogs on the road. Ravens, extra days to prepare. Harbaugh brothers, back to back. All of that stacked up against the Raiders. And for them to win that's an early season momentum swing.
Amazing. And you got to enjoy that. Just enjoy it. And I'm going to let Tarek enjoy it. Good stuff, man. I'm sure we'll hear from you either later in the week or next week. Thanks for calling in. All right, we're going to close out the show with our good friend Jacob from Fresno. So get ready. If you have your radio really loud, turn it down just a little bit.
2 notches.
2 notches. Here comes Jacob. We'll see if he's got the kids today.
Yep. Go, 10-minute number motion. This is Jacob from Fresno. What's up, guys? That was a strange game. Let me give you a little inside scoop on how it all worked out for me. This morning, I went to the Lord's Day. I celebrated the Lord on high. I lifted his name on high. And, I'm over here on the West Coast. The game's on at 10, and so my church, we start class at 8, and we don't get out until like 8 or 11:30, right? And so I'm just thinking, I'm going to miss the first half of the game. And then a buddy of mine's like, hey, we're going to go to this ministry leadership meeting. And, it's all, you don't need to know all the details, I guess, guys. But I went, and I'm like, I guess I'm just going to miss the game. Oh, well, we're going to lose anyway, right? But still, something inside of me was like, don't check the score. Just get the replay when you get home. And so I didn't look at the score, and I checked the replay. I'm watching the game. Well, it's going about how I thought it would. Our defense is doing good. Our offense is doing terrible. And in my mind, I'm watching the game. I'm thinking, Gardner Minshew can't complete a pass, man. This guy's, he's like 30% accuracy rating right now. This guy's terrible. He's terrible, this Gardner Minshew guy. He's terrible. Absolutely garbage. And then we won somehow. I don't, just all of a sudden, last couple drives of the game, we just turned it all around, and it just, like magic happened. And apparently Minshew was 30 for 38, man. The whole time I'm thinking this guy's like 20 for 35. I checked the stats, 30 for 38. He completed almost all of his passes, completed 30 passes, missed 8 of them. There's a lot of reasons why you might miss 8 passes. Drops. Devontae had one, but it wasn't really the best pass still. Gardner did pretty good. I got a question. My question is, why did I think Gardner was doing so terribly and he wasn't? Did you guys feel the same way? Am I alone in Raider Nation thinking that Gardner was just throwing a big stinker? And then I looked at the stats and I'm like, okay, he didn't throw a bunch of touchdowns, but he was very efficient in the same thing. And the past 2 weeks, but being honest, that's what I felt like. And it turns out I'm wrong. I think it might be the O-line. The O-line makes everybody look like a stinker, even the running backs. You guys take it easy.
There you
I'm
go.
going to run out of time, but I'll go Raiders.
There you go. Our good friend Jacob in Fresno. The point about Minshew is interesting because the quarterback always gets all the credit. And, it doesn't matter what's going wrong. And look, he threw the pick. He had the one turnover. That's what I got on him for, not for everything else. But it's also a little bit early in that first half and even into the second half a little bit, Mo, the plays behind the line of scrimmage, the fact that he had to get the ball off quickly because he was under so much pressure and duress all the time. He didn't have time to set. He didn't, even on the run a few times, he had some nice throws, but other times he had to rush the ball and he couldn't hit his receiver. So, and again, like you said, he only missed 8 out of 38 passes, which is pretty good.
So I think the perception is when you look at the score and you see that the Raiders only had 6 first half points.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they only had 43 total yards in the first half. You're thinking, oh, Gardner Minshew stinks. When you just hear those numbers, 6 points, 43 total yards, you're assuming, yeah, he's stinking it up today, right? But when you, as I said earlier, I think a lot of those short passes early in the game, a lot of conservative play calling, a lot of people want to say it is, I think it's to get him into rhythm. And the Raiders aren't going to come out of the gates with Luke Getsy attacking aggressively, but they're hoping that the early rhythm that they get Gardner Minshew in helps them in the second half or later on in the game when they want to take more deep shots. Remember, Antonio Pierce talked about taking more deep shots, and that happened in the second half. So I think that's part of it also. And then you talked about the interception midfield. That's something that I commented on. The Raiders have 3 midfield turnovers right now. They had 2 in week 1, Zamir White fumble, Gardner Minshew, ball slips out of his hand, and they had interception against the Ravens. All of those turnovers midfield. And when you cobble up all those things together, you're thinking, the quarterback play isn't that good. Right. But as I said, and I think it was, I forgot who said it during our calls, but now the Raiders are going to have to change their philosophy. I think it was our buddy Armando in Salt Lake City. The Raiders are going to have to change their philosophy now. They're going to have to use the passes set up to run. And I think you'll see more of that against the Panthers. We'll see how the Panthers adjust to that. But no, with that mindset of we have to move away from the run game being our bread and butter because the offensive line is not blocking well too. Now we're a pass first team, should have some early optimal results, assuming that the Raiders can attack the Panthers' suspect secondary, which I think they can.
Yeah, and just to note, if you look at Gardner Minshew now, stats don't tell all stories, right? But they're indicative. I think people be to Jacob's point, because I think a lot of Raider fans and a lot of folks in the nation are just like unsure of what he is. And yeah, he came back, but man, he wasn't doing good before that. Gardner Minshew completion percentage 77.5. That's first in the NFL. Completions 55, first in the NFL. Passing yards is 533, and that's tied for second in the NFL. Now, what he doesn't have, as you notice, is touchdowns. And so that's part of it, I think. We've seen, and I hate to bring up past open wounds, but you see Derek Carr and how much scoring they've done under Clint Kubiak down in New Orleans, and people are like, oh, he's having because they're scoring points. Now, Gardner Minshew's been efficient. This is what you want. If you take away the turnovers from Gardner Minshew, it's even better. So if he can take those turnovers away, start to get this offense moving, it's not all his fault, of course, but if he can get this moving and get some more scoring, then you start to look at it and say, well, Gardner Minshew's having the kind of year that, boy, if they can continue this, the Raiders can be, one of those low entry playoff teams, like a wild card team. So we'll see. But Jacob, as always, man, we appreciate your call and good stuff and the humor. And I'm glad you put God first. Sometimes you got to do that, man. Most of the time, right? So all good. But that's it. That's the last call for the show, Mo. We will, if you called in and didn't get on, we will have more on Thursday. Don't forget. So we'll get your call in, and you can call in and text us at 702-900-7869 as well. So we appreciate that. Mo, today is Tuesday. Let everybody know what you got going between now and our next show on Thursday.
Wednesday, Bleacher Report Live, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Thursday will be, as you said, we'll be on. Also, we'll be back on TNT Sports. Who knows? Maybe I should pick another Raiders topic on the show, because I strongly feel like the Raiders, I know I'm looking ahead here, and I posed this on Twitter, but the Raiders have a real shot to start the season 4-1. And I think I also had the Raiders starting the season at 4-1 when we made our predictions. Panthers next in the home opener. Browns, that offense not so good. Defense could be a close game. Broncos struggling with a rookie quarterback. I'm just saying, one game at a time, but I'm just saying they have a chance to start the season 4-1.
All right, there you go. See, there's the Midtown Mo update. So now you know where to find them on Wednesday and Thursday. And you also find him back here on Thursday as well as we get to our next show. All right, my friend, as always, a pleasure, just a pleasure. And thank you so much for recognizing me for me calling out Jacorian Bennett so many times because, boy, nobody wanted to listen to me, man. It was tough. It was tough, but you did. You gave me the credit. I appreciate that. All right. For our producer, Mike Robier, for my moat, I'm Scott Branson. Don't forget, subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Make sure you rate and review. And also, if you're watching us on video, hit us with that subscribe and also the notifications bell. Until Thursday, Raider Nation, enjoy your week, enjoy your victory, and we will talk to you then. All right.